Kerala Reader English Standard 6 Part 1 Unit 1 Reign of Love Family Tree. How many members are there in your family? Who are they? Here is a family tree. Collect details of your parents, grandparents, great grandparents, etc. Write their names and complete the family tree. Life with grandfather. This is Raja's family. Can you guess who the members of his family are? Who does Raja like the best in his family? Read the story and find out the answers to these questions. My home. Everybody called me Raja. It's not my real name, but I liked being called Raja. I lived with my grandfather and grandmother. They were my guardians. My mother died when I was young. My father left me with my grandparents who brought me up. We lived in a large house, but we were a small family. They were grandfather, grandmother, uncle, and I. We had many relatives, but they lived in their own houses. Grandfather was a tall, strong man. He always spoke in a loud voice. He knew everyone in the village. People respected him. They came to him for advice and help. Grandmother was kind and gentle. She took good care of me. She would follow me like a shadow, saying, "Drink this milk, or eat your food, or have a bath, go to bed." I did not like this, but still I loved her very much. My uncle was young and very clever. He helped grandfather in looking after his fields and gardens. People liked him, and I too liked him very much. Whenever I was in trouble, uncle would come to my help. At home, I did not have any friend to play with. Grandfather did not like my going out to play with other children. He believed that I would be spoiled if I did so. Other children did not like to come to our house because they were afraid of grandfather. Yet life with grandfather was not dull. I liked my home and the very large garden all around it. There were many trees in the garden, coconut trees, mango trees, and other kinds of trees. There were birds, butterflies, and honeybees. There were many tanks with plenty of fish in them. Kingfishers, storks, and other water birds came to the tanks to catch the fish. In a corner of the compound was a grove where trees, shrubs, and creepers grew wild. Jackals, mongooses, wildcats, and owls lived in the grove. We had many cows, bulls, and bullocks. Little calves played and ran about in our garden. I liked to play with the calves, and I liked to watch the birds in the garden. I looked for jackals coming out of the grove. I ran after mongooses, and I caught butterflies. Making a shower. It was an evening after a heavy rain. Grandfather was picking flowers from the jasmine bush under the sandalwood tree. The leaves of the tree were full of raindrops. I knew I could make rain if I shook the tree, and grandfather and I would get a good shower. I liked bathing in the rain, but he might not like it. But it would be great fun. So I quietly went near the sandalwood tree and shook it with all my strength. There was a heavy shower, and both grandfather and I were soaked. I loved it, but grandfather did not. He turned to me with an angry look. I was sure he would catch me and beat me. So I ran. He ran after me. I ran fast, but he ran faster. He had almost caught me when he stumbled and fell. I ran away to the paddy fields and hid myself there. I heard grandfather shout that he would teach me a lesson when I came back home. I did not want to go home because I feared grandfather would beat me. I stayed on in the fields. It was getting dark. I was afraid to stay there alone in the darkness. I remembered all the ghost stories I had heard. I stood up, looked around, and then ran towards home. I was still afraid to face grandfather, so I did not go inside the house. I went to the cowshed and took shelter in the loft. From there, I could see grandfather sitting on the veranda saying his prayers. Grandmother was waiting for me. When I did not turn up, she looked for me everywhere in the house. Then she came out and called aloud for me, thinking that I was somewhere in the garden. She did not get any answer. Then she went to grandfather and asked him where I was. You look for him in the house, grandfather said. He is hiding somewhere. He is not in the house, grandmother said. I look for him everywhere. The news spreads. Then grandfather stood up and went outside and called aloud, Come, Raja, come. I won't beat you. But I did not answer him, for I thought that he would beat me. Grandmother was angry and said, He won't come. You drove him away. I heard you say that you would beat him if he came home. Poor child, he is afraid of you and has run away. Grandfather called the servants and asked them to go out and look for me. They went out, but after a while returned to say that they could not find me. Grandmother started weeping. Grandfather started walking up and down the courtyard. The news that I was missing spread. Our neighbors came first, then our relatives, and then others who had heard the bad news. Many came to offer their sympathies to grandmother. Grandfather did not like this. He shouted, Nothing has happened to the boy. He is hiding somewhere. Can't some of you go out and find him instead of wasting your time here? Some of them went out to search for me. More and more people came, and soon there was a big crowd. By now, grandmother had lost all hope of seeing me again. She started telling the people what a good boy I was. The search parties returned without finding me. Grandmother started weeping loudly. The women in the crowd also wept. The servants of the house joined in the wailing. They all acted as if I were dead. I felt very sorry for grandmother. I wanted to come out. Grandfather was a man of strong will, but I knew that he too felt very sad. He did not, however, lose hope. He stood up, turned in the direction of our family temple, and prayed. Help me, God, he said. Give me my child. I want him now. I cannot wait any longer. He then stood silent in prayer. At that moment, uncle returned. He learned what was happening at home. He looked around and guessed where I was. He came to the cowshed and asked me to come down. I came down. Uncle took me into the house. Grandfather had just finished his prayer and turned. As he opened his eyes, he saw me standing before him. He took me up in his arms in joy, hugged me, and said, God heard my prayers and has given you back to us. Hi children, for more videos, please subscribe this channel.